مرحبا بكم أصدقائي. Hello my friends. I'm so excited to read this novel with you. I bought this book a couple of years ago when I was on a trip with a dear friend. I've never touched it since. Some books need only to be read one time and it lives with you for life. So I was saying هناك كتب وإن لم نتذكر جميع تفاصيلها تقتحمنا وتسكن أرواحنا، وأعتقد أن هذا الكتاب واحد من تلك الكتب. Before we start reading, I'd love to introduce the author. أعتقد أن خلفية الكاتب مهمة جدا لأننا سنستشعر ذلك في كتاباته. So without further ado, let's read together. Author biography: Paulo Coelho. Paulo was born in Rio in August 1947, the son of Pedro Queima Coelho de Souza, an engineer, and his wife Ligia, a homemaker. Early on, Paulo dreamed of an artistic career, something frowned upon in his middle-class household. In the austere surroundings of a strict Jesuit school, Paulo discovered his true vocation: to be a writer. Paulo's parents, however, had different plans for him. When their attempts to suppress his devotion to literature failed, they took it as a sign of a mental illness. When Paulo was 17, his father had him committed to a mental institution twice, where he endured sessions of electroconvulsive therapy, ECT. His parents brought him back there once more after he became involved with a theatre group and started to work as a journalist. Paulo was always a nonconformist, a seeker of the new. When in the excitement of 1968, the guerrilla and hippie movements took hold in a Brazil ruled by a repressive military regime, Paulo embraced progressive politics and joined the peace and love generation. He sought spiritual experience, traveling all over Latin America in the footsteps of Carlos Castaneda. He worked in the theater and dabbled in journalism, launching an alternative magazine called 2001. He began to collaborate with music producer Raul Seixas as a lyricist, transforming the Brazilian rock scene. In 1973, Paulo and Raul joined the Alternative Society, an organization that defended the individual's right to free expression, and began publishing a series of comic strips calling for more freedom. Members of the organization were detained and imprisoned. 2 days later, Paulo was kidnapped and tortured by a group of paramilitaries. This experience affected him profoundly. At the age of 26, Paolo decided that he had had enough of living on the edge and wanted to be normal. He worked as an executive in the music industry. He tried his hand at writing but didn't start seriously until after he had an encounter with a stranger. The man first came to him in a vision, and 2 months later Paolo met him at a cafe in Amsterdam. The stranger suggested that Paolo should return to Catholicism and study the benign side of magic. He also encouraged Paolo to walk the road to Santiago, the medieval pilgrim's route. In 1987, a year after completing that pilgrimage, Paolo wrote The Pilgrimage. The book describes his experiences and his discovery that the extraordinary occurs in the lives of ordinary people. A year later, Paolo wrote a very different book, The Alchemist. The first edition sold only 900 copies, and the publishing house decided not to reprint. Paolo would not surrender his dream. He found another publishing house, a bigger one. He wrote Brida, which received a lot of attention in the press, and both The Alchemist and The Pilgrimage appeared on bestseller lists. The Alchemist went on to sell more copies than any other book in Brazilian literary history. Paolo's story doesn't end there. He has gone on to write many other best-selling books that have touched the hearts of people everywhere. The Valkyries by the river Piedra, I sat down and weep. The Fifth Mountain, The Pilgrimage, Veronica decides to die, The Devil and Miss Prim, Manual of the Warrior of Light, 11 Minutes, The Zahir, Like the Flowing River, The Witch of Portobello, Brida, The Winner Stands Alone, Aleph and manuscript found in Accra. The boy's name was Santiago. Dusk was falling as the boy arrived with his head at an abandoned church. The roof had fallen in long ago, and an enormous sycamore had grown on the spot where the sacristy had once stood. He decided to spend the night there. He saw to it that all the sheep entered through the ruined gate, and then laid some planks across it to prevent the flock from wandering away during the night. There were no wolves in the region, but once an animal had strayed during the night, and the boy had had to spend the entire next day searching for it. He swept the floor with his jacket and lay down. Using the book he had just finished reading as a pillow, he told himself that he would have to start reading thicker books. They lasted longer and made more comfortable pillows. It was still dark when he awoke, and looking up, he could see the stars through the half-destroyed roof. I wanted to sleep a little longer, he thought. He had had the same dream that night as a week ago, and once again he had awakened before it ended. He arose and, taking up his crook, began to awaken the sheep that still slept. He had noticed that as soon as he awoke, most of his animals also began to stir. It was as if some mysterious energy bound his life to that of the sheep, with whom he had spent the past 2 years, leading them through the countryside in search of food and water. "They're so used to me that they know my schedule," he muttered. Thinking about that for a moment, he realized that it could be the other way around, that it was he who had become accustomed to their schedule or schedule. But there were certain of them who took a bit longer to awaken. The boy prodded them one by one with his crook, calling each by name. He had always believed that the sheep were able to understand what he said. So there were times when he read them part of his books that had made an impression on him, or when he would tell them of the loneliness or the happiness of a shepherd in the fields. Sometimes he would comment to them on the things he had seen in the villages they passed. But for the past few days he had spoken to them about only one thing: the girl, the daughter of a merchant who lived in the village they would reach in about 4 days. He had been to the village only once the year before. The merchant was a proprietor of a dry goods shop, and he always demanded that the sheep be shared in his presence, so that he would not be cheated. A friend has told the boy about the shop, and he had taken his sheep there. الآن وقت الملخص. وصل الغلام سانتياغو وقطيعه كنيسة مهجورة وقت الغسق، وقرر قضاء الليلة هناك، حيث أدخل أغنامه من خلال أنقاض المدخل، ووضع هنالك بعض الألواح الخشبية خشية أن تفر أحد أغنامه وأن تشرد في الليل. لم يكن سانتياغو يخشى عليهم الذئاب، فلا ذئاب في المنطقة، ولكنه اضطر في الماضي إلى قضاء يوم كامل يبحث فيه عن غنم شردت منه. ها هو يمسح الأرض بردائه ويستلقي ساندا رأسه على الكتاب الذي كان يقرأه، قائلا في نفسه: يجب أن أقرأ كتبا كثيفة من الآن فصاعدا، فهي أكثر إراحة. استيقظ الغلام وكان الظلام لا يزال يعم المكان، ونظر إلى السماء ليرى النجوم من خلال السقف المتداعي. لقد راوده نفس الحلم، ولكنه ومرة أخرى يستيقظ قبل أن يرى نهاية الحلم. انتصب سانتياغو وأخذ يهز على أغنامه بعصاه ليوقظ من لم يستيقظ بعد من أغنامه. فقد كانت هذه الأخيرة تستيقظ تزامنا مع وقت استيقاظه. لم يكن يعرف ما إن كانت أغنامه قد اعتادت على جدول أوقاته، أم ما إن كان هو الذي اعتاد على أوقاتهم. كان يشعر بهذه القوة الغامضة التي ربطت حياته بحياة قطيعه، حيث كان يقص عليه أجزاء من الكتب التي كان يقرأها، أو يروي له ما يحدث في القرى التي يمر بها. ولكن وفي الفترة الأخيرة كان هنالك شيء واحد يتحدث عنه، وهي الفتاة ابنة التاجر التي تسكن في إحدى القرى التي سيصلها خلال 4 أيام فقط. التاجر كان يملك محل، وكان يصر على أن تجز الأغنام في حضوره حتى لا يكون عرضة للغش. لكن لقد كان صديق الغلام قد دله على هذا التاجر فأخذ أغنامه هناك. أصدقائي، كان هذا ملخص الجزء الأول ل Alchemist. Until I see you next time, take care and bye bye.